I don't know who you are, but you're the worst. What are you doing? Just going back and forth. What the hell? Take 3?
This is why we can't have nice things.
This is 2020. Alright. Hello and welcome back. This week I'm excited because I have another Twitter Friends book to review. It's Andy Slinger's The Super Twins. So, as the name suggests, this book follows a set of twins. One is named Jake, one is named Ryan. The whole time that I read it, I couldn't help but think of 16 Candles. That and also the Wonder Twins cartoon from like the 70s. Anyway, so these two twins, they start out pretty normal. One is super brainy and smart, one is more athletic, and I don't think he's dumb, but definitely not as academically inclined as his brother. So it kind of reminded me of my own childhood watching Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, like just kind of that dynamic. Anyway, their mom passes away, so they have to move to live with their dad, who I'm pretty sure is ex-military. Regardless, he's pretty strict, but definitely a very loving father. Everything changes when this giant meteor crashes into their backyard, and Jake is in the hospital for an extended period of time while his brother and dad walk away essentially unscathed. It's after this meteor crash, though, that gives all of them different abilities, although some not necessarily for good. Jake and Ryan end up basically being little superheroes, which is pretty cool because, I mean, how many times do you get to hear of like young heroes? I think the youngest that I usually hear is like Spider-Man, depending on like which iteration you're talking about. But anyway, so they now have powers. Ryan's normal intelligence turns into super intelligence, basically, while Jake's natural athletics turn into like super strength. Together, they're just incredibly powerful, but they don't fully grasp just how powerful they are. Anyway, now that they have these super abilities, they want to use it for good, but you know, they're only 13. It's a little hard to be a superhero when you're that young. Regardless, they manage to make themselves a lair. They somehow convince their grandma to make them superhero costumes, even though they say it's for like a school project or something. And they start trying to investigate this crime. Well, this crime turns into a battle, essentially, between good and evil. And the evil side is led by Evil Dad, who is essentially their real dad, but with his mind taken over by the meteor because it has really powerful properties that affect the minds of men, and he's unfortunately corrupted by it. So I'll leave it at that. I don't want to give away too many spoilers. I think I enjoyed it in the fact that it was overall a good book. I think the characters were well developed. They definitely had their own personalities. There's nothing that's kind of more frustrating than a flat character that just like exists, but you don't really see their emotions or whatnot. I also think the plot was pretty well developed. As I said in my last superhero audiobook review, there's kind of an inherent level of corniness, I think, with superheroes, and I think that level of corniness was a little bit heightened with the fact that they're 13. Just because, I mean, when you're 13, it's not like you can cruise around in your own Batmobile. Like, chances are you don't know how to drive. Likewise, and I think it's one of the twins, I forget who exactly, they even say, like, you're not Bruce Wayne, you don't have millions of dollars to spend. Like, so their resources, even though somehow they get them in the story, their resources are somewhat limited. Like, I had a chuckle when it's like right before one of the big battle scenes and they're like so-and-so ran into the lair and grabbed all of the weapons, and the weapons are like Nerf guns and water pistols and stuff. Like, it's just kind of extra corny. Not that that's a bad thing. However, I know I'm not necessarily the intended audience for this book. It's definitely a children's book. And so while I probably wouldn't personally read it again for my own pleasure, I'm certainly glad that I read it. It was entertaining. It was fast-paced. It was engaging. I wanted to know what happened next. I wanted to know if they were actually going to win. But it's definitely more aimed for, like, elementary, middle schoolers. So if I actually was old enough to have a kid who read, if I knew a kid around that age, I would 100% buy it for them, because I think it was a really well written book. I just don't think I was the right person to read it, because I think this is a really good book that if your kid is interested in superheroes, but like maybe you don't like the comics, because I've definitely noticed that a lot of comic books are getting a little darker and a little more mature lately. I don't know about all of them, but the ones that I've seen have. Or if you have a kid who maybe isn't quite into reading yet, I think this is a really good book for them. Just because even though it is kind of corny with superheroes and 13-year-olds being said superheroes, like I said, it's well paced, it's well thought out. I think Slinger is a really good author. He's very descriptive. I just think it's a good book for a very certain type of audience. My understanding is that there's a second one that's going to come out. I'd be interested to see what that would be, just because I was impressed with the storyline. I don't think... Well, let me back up. Even though the meteorite / global event gives someone superpowers is a little bit of a cliche, I think the whole giving some people good powers and giving some people not good powers, I think that's an interesting trope, and especially like with the characters that it affected. So I'd be curious to see if that continues or if it shifts and changes in some other way. So yeah, overall, I would recommend it. I definitely acknowledge the fact that it's a children's book, and I think it's great for probably like 7, 8-ish to 13-year-olds. Definitely try to pick it up like as a gift if you do have a child in your life who is interested in superheroes, or maybe is getting into reading and wants to expand their genres that they're interested in. Yeah, it was enjoyable. That's all I have for that. Next week I will be looking at Neo Striker Shiny by J.D. Nile, and I am excited to get back to you with my thoughts. Thanks.